Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I have 3 great glass pads, and I just want to go over what you guys should be expecting if you're going to be purchasing one or all of these. Just to showcase these pads a little bit briefly, the Skypad 3.0 I do have a review of, and I do think that it is a great pad, particularly for even competitive purposes, and we'll get into all 3 of the pads and how they perform. But Skypad is the company that has really streamlined and spearheaded glass pads, hard pads back onto the market and have performed so well in the hands of competitive players. Even with the Skypad 2.0 and now the upgraded Skypad 3.0, I really do think that Skypad has provided a very nice product for a lot of players looking for a very good hard pad for competitive play. In terms of things that you guys should know about the Skypad, they do have limited runs. This is the Sora. They also had the Yuki aim pad. Both limited designs have been a little waifu, but the pad in general, all of the pads perform the same. They do have also a plain white and a plain black with the Skypad logo, or you can do just the Skypad text on the bottom right. The size of the pad is pretty unique. It is 400 by 500, so it is wider than it is long, which I actually do like. And I think that a lot of people that need more width than length actually will enjoy that as well. The pad does have a few backings on the bottom, but they are very level to the pad, but you will still get a little bit of flex when you are pushing inward. I don't think that will affect you at all in game. It is a very high quality pad, one that will last you forever. It does not have a coating that is going to fade away over time, and it is tempered glass like these other pads. Getting to the Pulsar Superglide, this is 490 by 420. It is a similar surface feel, again, tempered glass in comparison to the Skypad 3.0. It is 490 by 420 in the XL variant, and it is 420 by 330 in the large variant. Both sizes will run cheaper than the comparable Skypad prices. We've got $95 for the XL, $85 for the large, and you are getting a very similar experience here to the Skypad, but the backing here is actually significantly different and a lot more high quality, and it does not flex in the middle with applying downward pressure. It remains very steady on your desk and barely moves, if at all. And then getting to the Wraith pad, the Wraith pad actually is very different in size in comparison to the Pulsar and the Skypad. This pad is 450 by 450. It will also run cheaper than the Superglide as well as the Skypad. In terms of availability, I think these might be on Lethal Gaming Gear soon, but this is a company based out of Turkey, so what the availability is, I'm not too sure at this time. The pad does not have rounded edges like the Pulsar Superglide or the Skypad, so that is definitely something to keep your eyes on, because if you hit that, it actually is really pointy. I mean, you could probably puncture somebody with that. And the backings on the bottom are quite different as well. They are slightly raised in comparison to the Skypad, so you will have a little bit more height when you are kind of gliding your arm, your forearm on the pad. You might feel it a little bit more, and the pad will flex a little bit as well. In terms of glass pads and the experience that you can expect, in terms of just casual use and browsing the web, you are going to have a noticeable, audible level on your glide and your grind on the pad when you are just kind of wanting to browse the web, watch YouTube. And that can definitely be an annoyance for a lot of people. I particularly do not enjoy browsing casually with my headphones out on glass pads, because you will have a very audible grind and glide depending on what skates you're using, what mouse you're using, and how long and how worn those skates are. This is consistent across the Superglide pad, the Skypad, as well as the Wraith pad. It is going to be a similar web browsing experience and for casual use. In terms of competitive play, I don't think that you guys should necessarily worry about how your performance would be on a hard pad. I think hard pads actually are just historically extremely good for tack shooters and very good for your track-heavy games. In terms of tack shooters, we've been using hard pads since the days of the original CS with the Rat Pad, the Everglide, and hard pads are definitely very underrated nowadays, and I think that everyone is kind of getting back on the wagon with the Superglide and the Skypad 3.0, and rightfully so, because it is not an experience that will leave you lacking in your ability to control your mouse. I think a lot of people think that the mouse pad is just going to provide this hockey rink experience and provide a lot of wiggle. That's not really how it is. It puts you in total control of the mouse with low initial friction, low static friction, low dynamic friction, but you can stop on a dime and the pad will not be that wiggly at all. It's even more controlled, I would say, than the Hayate Atsu, which I actually get a lot of wiggle at the end range of motion on my mouse. So it is very easy to control that static friction, and your muscle memory really comes into play and allows you to excel very well on this pad because X and Y is going to be the most consistent compared to a cloth pad, and it is an experience that is very easy to get moving if you are a wrist player, and if you're an arm aimer, again, you're going to just have a very smooth, very consistent glide. So I think it's very good for competitive purposes, even for tack shooters, and exceptionally good for track-heavy games like Apex. I think your micro corrections for track-heavy games feel that much better because you're not getting any tug from a cloth pad, and just your overall ability to hold angles and hold your crosshair steady in tack shooters, I don't think is affected at all by being on glass, at least for me. For others, it could be a little bit different, but for me, I have absolutely no issues keeping my crosshair very steady in tack shooters on glass. Despite that low initial friction and low static friction, it's not really a problem for those scenarios. So if you're wondering how it kind of performs in game, how it would affect you, I think it personally makes me a better player. I don't have issues in tack shooters, and I certainly don't have issues in track-heavy games. The next thing that you guys should really worry about, though, is every time you get something on this pad, whether it be, and this, again, it's the same for the Skypad, it's the same for the Cosmic Pad, every time you get something on the pad, whether it be a hair, dust, or even shavings from your PTFE skates, depending on what third-party skates you're using, you will feel that grinding under your mouse. And every time you kind of glide over a hair, every time you glide over a piece of dust or whatever, it just has this grindy feeling like you're grinding on sand or you're grinding on sandpaper. It's not very enjoyable. So you'll see me kind of just constantly brushing off the pad to kind of avoid that. But, you know, it's something that you kind of just subconsciously do. And I just don't find it to be much of an issue at all. The thing that I really had a problem with, though, and you guys should really be aware of this, are third-party skates. Some third-party skates, I have the BTL skates on my Vaxi XE, and the top layer of the skates is so thin that it actually begins to shave off little PTFE dust on the pad or under your mouse. And every time that happens, which happens, literally was happening very frequently, almost every like 10 minutes, I would just get this sandpaper, sand feeling under my mouse, and I would have to just constantly clean the pad. And it just becomes very annoying because when it happens with a lot of frequency, it becomes a problem. With regular skates, just default PTFE skates on your mouse, I don't necessarily think that you have to worry as much as replacing default skates because the glide, again, is very low friction. So you're going to have a nice glide, whether it's default skates or third-party skates. Certainly, you will have your preference, but just please keep in mind that certain third-party skates are not going to be as durable on glass and can present an issue. If you have BTL skates and you've noticed a lot of grinding under your mouse on hard pads, I would definitely point you to that as being the culprit. I did not have an issue with the default Vaxi skates. I did not have an issue with the default Pulsar skates, and I don't have an issue with core pads. Between the Skypad and the Superglide pad, the glide is pretty consistent on both. Static friction feels very similar. Dynamic and kinetic friction feels very similar. If I had to say, I would say maybe the Superglide pad feels ever so slightly more buttery than the Skypad. And in terms of moisture accumulation, I think that the Superglide pad, I don't quite get as sticky or stuck on with my skin in comparison to the Skypad 3.0. So I'm kind of leaning towards, personally, the Superglide pad. I like the 490 by 420 size. I like the price. And in terms of just that stickiness, because I don't like playing with an arm sleeve, I'm leaning towards the Superglide pad. In terms of the personal performance I've had on the Cosmic Pad, it's pretty similar, again, to the other pads, but I actually feel even maybe a little bit more stickiness on this and ever so slightly like more control on the pad from the pad itself. And I kind of prefer the openness that I get on the Skypad and the Superglide pad, so I'm kind of leaning towards these pads. But again, you have to worry about price and availability. So if the Cosmic Pad is something that is more up your alley in terms of pricing, I certainly think that all three of these pads perform very well. I just kind of noticing that I am performing better on the Skypad 3.0 and the Pulsar Superglide personally. And of course, you will have to worry a little bit about your arm when you are getting a lot of moisture accumulation on the underside of your hand and your forearm, getting stuck to the pad in certain instances. Again, I think the Superglide handles it a little bit better, but of course you can always get an arm sleeve to kind of resolve that issue. So again, guys, things to worry about in terms of glass or hard pads. Obviously, the audible level, if you're not going to have headphones in, could be a little bit of an annoyance. Certain third-party skates will shed dust or PTFE, grind on the pad. You have to worry about hairs getting on the pad, but as long as you're keeping the pad clean, you're using the right skates, it actually is a very enjoyable experience in game. I don't think that from a performance perspective, you should feel inhibited in purchasing this type of a pad, because I personally think that being in control and full control of your mouse movements, to me, can be a benefit not only for your track-heavy games like Apex, but your tech shooters like Valorant and CSGO as well. I hope we see some innovation in the hard pad market. I hope we keep seeing really nice glass pads on the market. And I do think that you have a lot of options between the Cosmic Pad, the Superglide, the Skypad in terms of sizing that you want, design that you want, and of course, price and availability. I hope that helped, guys. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next review. Peace.